2014 is now in session. I'd ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Since our last meeting, we've lost two members of our community, members that I had a great deal of respect for and knew personally, and I just want to, and tonight during our moment of silence, I'd ask that you maybe have a thought for their families. Carl Bernston, longtime resident and very active member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, get her done type person. And Frank Maturo, decorated veteran of a number of wars, who served in the Army Corps of Engineers and retired as Lieutenant Colonel from the Army. Very distinguished career. If you just remember those two persons. There are probably some others that I just don't know about, but that's the ones I do know about. Thank you. If you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, I have one item I'd like to add to the consent agenda, which is not included at this time, but I would like to add it, which is to add the October the 2nd meeting minutes. That was a meeting at the elementary school, and they should be in your packet. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, Council?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion at all? Agenda is approved. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Jody. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to recognize some of our staff members for their years of service. And the first one I'll call to the podium is Wes Haskett, who's celebrating his 5th year of service. Sorry, Wes. Southern Shores Town Council would like to thank you for your 5 years of service. As a dedicated employee, you have helped make the town of Southern Shores a better place to live. I get a lot of positive feedback about Wes and the job he does for our community and the response he gives to our citizens. He does a great job, and I'm happy to have him here. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. The next person I'd like to recognize is Bonnie Swain. Bonnie's our money person. Bonnie's been serving with us for the town for 10 years now. And I'm going to read the same thing to you, Bonnie. The Southern Shores Town Council would like to thank you for your 10 years of service. As a dedicated employee, you have helped make the town of Southern Shores a better place to live. I thank you. Thank you. Good job. And finally, last but not least, Jennifer Couture. Here she comes. Hi, Jennifer. I don't see Jennifer as often. She works on the police side of the house. But she's representing her tonight with a certificate for 15 years of service to our town. And obviously she's done a great job because she pulls a tough taskmaster. Southern Shores Town Council would like to thank you for your 15 years of service. As a dedicated employee, you have helped make the town of Southern Shores a better place to live. And I thank you again. Great job.
Mr. Mayor, I'll ask our newest employee, Cynthia Mills, if she'll come up and make an introduction. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you formally tonight to the new town hall receptionist and also the administrator for the director of the Public Works Department, Ms. Cynthia Mills. Cynthia comes to us with a background in customer service, and she's already been on the job for several months now. But tonight is her formal introduction to you and the council, and we're happy to have her on staff with the town.
Thank you, Peter. The first report tonight is from our finance officer, Bonnie Swain. It's a quarterly report. Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah. I got this. This is tab 2.
How are you? Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight, I'm here to present to you the financials for the first quarter of the fiscal year 14-15. As you will notice, our expenditures for the first quarter exceeded our revenues. This is mostly due to timing issues of when we are getting the revenues in, that sort of thing. The first thing that I would like to bring to your attention are the shared revenues, which is our occupancy and the sales tax. If you'll take a look at the revenue page, which is an overview of July, August, and September, you will see that, like I said, basically those are timing issues. For instance, we did not get our first distribution of occupancy tax for this fiscal year until the 1st of September. So that's why it shows that we're minus 368. It's simply a timing issue. Instead of getting it on the last day of August, we got it on the first day of September. Also, if you will remember, last year we reverted, we did our revenue neutral rate, which was no tax increase. And there's a year lag on our shared revenues as to what percentages we get from those. And the prior year, we had a 2-cent increase. So we're going to be seeing a smaller amount of shared distributions for our shared revenues as a result of that, of being revenue neutral and not increasing our taxes versus having a 2-cent tax increase the prior year. Also, the one other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, the building permits are up for the first quarter versus this quarter last year. And I had Wes and Dabney do some research for me on that, and we actually issued 20 more permits this first quarter of this year than we did last year, which resulted in about $10,000 more revenue. So that summarizes the revenues and the expenditures. On the review of the expenditures on the year to date, you'll see that the police department, it shows a decrease for the first quarter. That again is a timing issue. It is due to the purchase of our new vehicles and the debt payments on the lease purchase for the vehicles that were purchased in prior years. So it's just a matter of they were paid in October versus the first quarter of that. So that's why it shows that there's a decrease. And in the Public Works Department, you will notice that there's a increase in the Public Works Department for this first quarter. That is due to the purchase of a new tractor for this year, the addition of the Public Works Director position, which was started last year in October for July, August, and September of last year. We didn't have that position. And also some work that's being done, the retaining wall for the north side of the new police training building, and we got new phone systems in the town hall, which was also budgeted in the Public Works Department. Are there any questions?
I don't have any.
Slide it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Town Planner, Wes Haskett. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a brief report for you tonight for the month of October. There were 8 zoning permits issued, 20 building permits issued. That consisted of 1 new single-family dwelling, 1 addition remodel, 5 remodels, 3 accessory structures, and 9 others. There are currently 14 single-family dwellings under construction in the town, and the total amount of fees collected in October was $8,492.50. And finally, with respect to code enforcement, there were 2 warning citations mailed for the month of October, and that included 1 right-of-way obstruction and 1 open storage of building materials without a building permit. Any questions?
Any questions?
I don't.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Chief Cole?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. October 2014 report for the police department. Officers responded to and handled 609 calls for service. As you can see to the left of that, there's a few of the highlights and the breakdowns. They also handled, we had 18 incidents, which you can see were broken down off to the right. We also had 6 arrests. 3 of those were for possession of controlled substance, 1 DWI, and the other 2 others were domestic related. Officers handed out 10 written citations, another 19 warning citations, 8 ordinance violations, and we handled 4 motor vehicle accidents for the month of October. Questions? Council?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ed Limbacher, our fire chief.
Good evening, everybody. For the month of October, the fire department responded to 2 building fires, 17 rescue or EMS assists, 4 hazardous conditions, 8 service calls, 1 good intent, and 2 false alarms, for a total this month, or last month, for 34 calls for service. Anybody have any questions?
The 2 fires, were they structural type fires?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Were they-
He asked if the 2 fires were structure fires.
Yeah, were they here, or would you assist some other department?
Assists, yes.
Thank you. Reports from town board, none tonight, as I see it. General public comment, 3 minutes per speaker. Thank you, Sheila. Same old reminder that I always give you. You're welcome to speak, but please don't take more than 3 minutes. Other people want to speak as well. Thank you. First person on the list tonight is William Small.
Good evening. I'm here tonight representing the Fairway Drive Homeowners Association. That's the private end of the street. And we had our annual meeting last Saturday, and as an association, we would like to formally go on record that we oppose option C of the bicycle and pedestrian plan that you discussed at last month's meeting. That's it.
Thank you.
R.O. Barclay.
My question was answered by Mr. Ratsford today.
Thank you. Paulette Prodancheck. Did I get that right, Paulette? Prodancheck, I'm sorry. I came fairly close.
I know there's been a lot going on with the road repairs and the trees and so forth. And I'd like to comment that I realize that being a council member must seem to be, and I'm sure it is, a thankless job. That being said, I would ask that perhaps in the future, council members could review prior to major road replacement, repairs, repaving jobs. Perhaps you could go out and individually review what it looks like before, and then again, what it looks like after. In my own circumstance, I live on a dead-end street. We've got a little turnaround now that's, for what it's worth, it was a lot of money spent, but trash trucks and recycle trucks still have to make a three-point turn. So the only other comment I would like to make is I would like for someone to explain why we had to tear out all of the beautiful cactus plants that were on Dogwood, and what are we going to be planting in there now? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Joe Van Giesen.
Thank you. I understand that the Dogwood intersection and the Fairway Drive projects are essentially a fait accompli. They're going to be implemented. Nothing can stop it. These comments are more to illustrate to the citizens and those that can view this video later how we got to this point. In the previous meetings in September, the 2 meetings in September, I asked, how could we have a budget estimate for these projects to total somewhere in the neighborhood of $130,000, $140,000, and yet get bids for well over $300,000. I think the ultimate final cost of the projects to be determined, but right now it looks like about $340,000, which is close to 3 times, or a little over under 3 times the amount that was budgeted. Well, now I know why. In response to a request for information, I got the basis and the methodology. Town Manager Rasko wrote me a letter describing their methodology and explained to me the data that I had already received, which wasn't apparent to me. So the method and the scope of the projects used as the basis for the 2014 and 2015 road construction project bears no resemblance to the scope and the cost of the projects that were approved for Fairway Drive and the Dogwood intersection. The disparity between what was budgeted and how the estimates were developed compared with the scope and cost of the projects approved by the board supports at least 2 possibilities, which I'll present at the end of my comments. The basis for the original budget estimates that was included in the overall budget for all of the road construction projects in the capital improvement component of the budget were based on 3 projects. These projects in total, these were projects that were already completed, and in total were valued or estimated at $23,858. A very small percentage of the overall roads capital improvement budget of more than $500,000. These projects that were used for the basis of the estimate were Yucca Lane project, which was 27 feet in length, a North Dogwood Trail project, which was 40 feet in length, and the Gingot Lane project, which was 230 feet. None of these projects included the addition of new curbs, new gutters, drains, swales, catch basins, grading, or tree cutting, which are part of the North Dogwood, the Dogwood intersection and the Fairway Drive projects. So the bottom line is that the 2014 and 2015 component, capital improvement component was based on projects that were just basically road replacement, road repairs, not new construction of new scope that wasn't originally there. So this leads me to one of two possibilities. One, that the town council and the town manager knew that the streets portion of the capital budget that was approved was not representative of the projects that were planned to be implemented this year. The second is, maybe you didn't know. And the reason you didn't know was because you didn't bother to review or inquire about the basis for the proposed budget estimates. Either when you approved the budget for 24-15 or when you approved the contracts. So this leaves me with the possibilities that I spoke of earlier. One, you deceived the citizens by not properly estimating for the scope of the projects that were going to be done this year, or you were incompetent and because you didn't know that the scope that was estimated and the scope of the actual construction was greatly different by an order of magnitude. Neither of those consequences is acceptable.
Jennifer Frost. Good evening, Jennifer.
Mr. Mayor and Honourable Board and all my neighbours and friends, with of course no possible ability, having done sandling and been on the Nags Head Planning Board, I still would like to raise some legitimate questions. First of all, and I would like them written down and answered, first of all, with regard to Fairway Drive and Dogwood and Ginga Trail and anything else that applies, I would like a cost of the jobs involved, each one, and the total of each one and all. And that should include the surveying. These are just examples. The planning. Any tree removal. Removing and shredding. Cutting, removing and shredding. They're different monies, they're different jobs. How much is clear the different roads? What the cost is predicted to be, and should have quotes based on outside contractors as well, new installation, all phases, materials and labour, the cost of insurance, the amount from Southern Shores itself, meaning us, the taxpayers, any amounts from outside Southern Shores or contractors, like the state. I would like to know, we need to know, this is before anything is ever done, we need to know the extended time, the proposed time and schedule, so that if there is a hurricane like Katrina, of course it gets held up, but there ought to be some idea of time. And I think it needs to be transparent as to which departments, not one, but which departments are involved, in which phases, in which activities, and which personnel in those departments. And I think, Mr. Mayor, if the town council does not have this, then I hate to be rude, but you guys have got no business being there at all. No business. And I think if you were here with Mr. David Stick, he would tell you to come around to his house and give you a drink and say bye-bye. And I'm staying in David Stick's house right now, and I came to Southern Shores because of David. And he was our inspiration when we did sandling. And was he an easy man? No, he was not an easy man. But that's not the point. His results were pretty darn good. So I would like you to take this seriously and let me know the different personnel in the town which will be dealing with the different phases and who is going to bring it all together. And I thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Sullivan.
Mr. Mayor, Council, fellow citizens, my name is Jerry Sullivan, and I live on 31 10th Avenue. My comments are addressed to what's been going on in our town. A lot has changed in this town since we moved to Southern Shores, Michael and I, 14 years ago. 14 years ago, Southern Shores presented itself as a town of volunteers with an open-door policy. You could walk into town hall, talk to the town manager, the mayor, the building inspector, and any of the people that worked in the town. When the town council, each year we had a beach cleanup with prizes hidden along the crossovers and hot dogs cooked in the parking lot. I think, Jody, you were actually in charge of it one year. When the town council passed a resolution in support of adding a turning lane on Route 12 to Duck, I stepped up and got a petition of over 300 people against adding the turning lane. Did the council decide to take on the town? No. Then Mayor Paul Sutherland asked me and another person to head up an initiative to save our town from road widening. Personally, he solicited 17 resolutions from other towns and organizations. He mailed postcards to all residents and property owners asking them their opinion on building the bridge and widening the roads. And thus, Build the Bridge, Preserve Our Roads was founded. This is what true leadership looks like. We had a win-win council and town. People were proud of the town and they volunteered. Fast forward to 2014. You can no longer walk into the town hall and talk to the town manager, mayor, or members of the staff. You must go past to the side door and enter at the front and state your business at the counter. The motto, Southern Shores, a town of volunteers, is no longer posted on our website. And last February, this council and manager tried to push a resolution for quick take without first talking to the residents. This room, which is usually empty, was full of people who had concerns about the resolution. The mayor and the council listened stone-faced and then voted in lockstep for the resolution against the wishes of many of their constituents. The residents responded by contacting Paul Tyne and Bill Cook, who decided not to include Southern Shores in the legislation due to the apparent controversy in our town. And when it was found that the council and manager's road program would take down many of the trees in our maritime forest, and the Fairway residents obtained a petition with 95% of their residents not wanting the trees removed. Did the council and manager work with them to limit the destruction? Not this council. The council said if they wanted to keep the trees, they would have to vote to privatize the road and assume the cost of maintaining it. And when the group did a mailing to gather support from other residents, the town manager responded by attempting to cut them off, by signing a contract at 7 a.m. and cutting the first tree by 7:15. Again, this council was full of people protesting the actions of the council. And when a candlelight vigil for the trees was scheduled for the following week, which I attended, the tree crew showed up to finish taking down the trees that morning. Was that a coincidence, or just another action by the town manager and the council to squelch the public voice? And now we find our council has signed a 10-year contract with the highest paid town manager on the beach. We have moved from residents and councils working together in a win-win mentality to the town council and town manager versus the town, and a win-lose mentality. What a legacy, Mayor Bennett. I am ashamed of all of you and add my name to the group that is asking the mayor, town council, town manager to resign. I know you aren't listening, so this is being addressed to my fellow citizens. Please join us in asking this group to resign, and if not, please exercise your thoughts in the next election next year. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Ann Schwarzma.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council, Mr. Rasco, Mr. Gallup, Ms. Kane, neighbors and friends. My name is Ann Scherdsma, and I live at 69 Hickory Trail. What I'm about to say gives me no pleasure, especially with former Mayor Hal Denny sitting to my right. It has come to my attention recently that the Town Council may have committed a malfeasance in holding a closed-door session March 19th, 2013, when it had an annual retreat. Out of that retreat, according to correspondence that was received by a member of the community from Mr. Rasco, a vision statement was formulated, other policies were determined, and the town made a consensus that it should be open to the general public as well as to residents and property owners, and that all citizens should be able to use and enjoy the facilities and amenities provided by the town of Southern Shores. In order to effectuate this, the town was, it said, according to the vision statement, the town is committed to acquiring land for such public purposes by gift, donation, negotiated sale, or eminent domain proceeding. This was a resolution adopted after a retreat by the town council. If someone can tell me otherwise, a retreat is a closed-door meeting. Was it open to the public? I'd like to know. Because there are laws, and Mr. Gallup knows, Mr. Rasco knows, there are open meeting laws that govern when the town council and the mayor can conduct business under the circumstances, the effect of that business, whether the public is to be invited. And as far as I can tell by reading North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.9 et sec, there are no exemptions that would apply to allow a retreat in closed session. If I'm wrong and this was open to the public and public opinion was considered, then I retract what I say. But if in fact there was a meeting, an ad hoc meeting by this town council and mayor, being Mr. Hal Denny, and a vision statement was reached, and this is now the policy that is governing this town, instead of this land use plan, which was approved in 2012 and contains input from the entire community through a Speak Out for Southern Shores town meeting, through a community-wide survey, then we have to know. Because policies have changed radically in this town. And I suspect that it's because of this retreat in which each town council gave his or her vision for the future of the town. I said it before, we're not interested in your vision for the town. We are interested in you representing the people of this town. Here are the guidelines that you should have read. Town of Southern Shores, CAMA Land Use Plan Update, locally adopted July 18, 2012, certified by the Coastal Resources Commission in 2012. This is your governing document, not a vision statement that was derived at an annual retreat. And I'd like to read from this 2012 land use plan because I think some of you haven't bothered to read it, nor have you read the previous 4 land use plans that have been in effect in this town. First of all, this is not just any town. This is not a suburb. This is not Durham. This is not Northern Virginia. This is a coastal community that's entitled to environmental protection, and the state gives it that protection. In Southern Shores, according to the land use plan, there is one area under private ownership. These maritime forests are the only maritime forest communities in the state that are relatively intact. These are among the oldest and more stable portions of the Outer Banks, according to the National Heritage Program. That's an important legacy of this town. That's an important thing for us to preserve and protect. If you look into this land use plan and you disregard this ex parte statement from an annual retreat, and you look at the document that had the public's input, you'll read that the town of Southern Shores is a quiet seaside residential community comprised primarily of small, low-density neighborhoods. I'll move ahead a little bit. The desired plan for the future is to maintain the existing community appearance and form. The key aspirations and concerns of the community are expressed in this document. Among them are maintaining North Carolina 12 as a 2-lane highway, maintaining vegetation, and preventing clear cutting. I'd like to know what happened to the ordinance that used to prevent clear cutting. When was that repealed? That used to be on the books. Perhaps Mrs. Hess knows. She's been on the council for a long time. Perhaps Mr. Sanders. 3 people participated in that annual retreat, as well as, I assume, Mr. Rasco, and perhaps Mr. Gallup was present as well. And maintaining the beaches and dunes. The intent of the people of the town who participated in this land use plan was to preserve what we have, not to widen roads, not to clear cut, not to eliminate trees. I'll keep my comments there. I invite you to take a look at our land use plan. This is what governs this town. These are the guidelines. We are responsible. You are responsible to the state of North Carolina. You're responsible to the Coastal Resources Commission. You can't just go off on a little frolic and come up with a vision statement because that's how you feel. And I would endorse what was just said. There was a time, and I go back quite a ways in this town, where this town was managed by volunteers and we all listened to each other. Lately, money is being thrown at paid facilitators and paid consultants instead of involving the community in the nuts and bolts of how are we going to preserve what we have and enhance our quality of life. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 2013-14 audit presentation from Teresa Osborne from Dahlia & Osborne. Good evening, Teresa.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present the results of your June 30th, 2014 audited financial statements for the town of Southern Shores. The town has received an unqualified opinion on its financial statements, which is the best opinion you can receive, and this is outlined on pages 1 and 2 of the financial statements. This opinion states that your financial statements are prepared and presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Additionally, there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses noted, and this is outlined in the internal control report on pages 52 and 53 of your financial statements. The financial statements are 53 pages long, so I'm not going to go through every page with you tonight. I just want to point out a few highlights to you. There is a management discussion and analysis which kind of takes the numbers and puts them in a more narrative format on pages 3 through 10. I think that's a good section to look at. Just for your information, the notes are in the middle of the financial statements. Everything that you find behind the notes is going to be the more detailed financial statements, and the financial statements before the notes are going to be the ones that are the more condensed financial statements. I'm just going to bring your attention to a few key items tonight on pages 14 and 15 of the audit. When you see general fund on Exhibit 3 and 4, just to remind you, accounting principles require your general fund and your capital reserve fund to be combined. So that general column includes general fund and capital reserve fund. And on page 15, down towards the bottom of the page, you'll see that revenues exceeded expenditures by $173,865. It's made up of two different amounts. One of those is an overage in the general fund of $323,970, offset by a reduction in the capital reserve fund of $150,105. Overall, in the general fund, property tax revenues were flat due to adopting a revenue-neutral tax rate last year as a result of revaluation. As you recall, your property valuations dropped in the range of about 26% due to revaluation. Sales, occupancy, and land transfer taxes were up $232,000. That was due to a shift in the proportionate tax levies among the towns due to tax rate changes in the prior year, which would have been fiscal year 12-13. All other revenues were in line with the prior year, except for grant revenues related to specific projects. On page 14, down towards the bottom of the page, where you see the fund balance section, you're going to see that unassigned fund balance in the general fund at the end of the year was $4,488,249. This is an increase of $529,428 over the prior year. This is primarily a result of the revenues over expenses in the general fund that I spoke about earlier, the $323,000. The unassigned fund balance represents 79% of your total general fund expenses for the year, and it is above your working capital fund balance policy of $1,750,000. On pages 18 and 19, just want to point out that these are the financial statements for the law enforcement officer special separation allowance. This is where the town puts aside money to cover a retirement benefit for retired law enforcement officers. That's fully funded by local governments. You have $179,000 in that fund at June 30th, and you're just now getting to the point where you're starting to pay out those benefits for retired officers. There's a number of other statements included. However, I think these two statements, Exhibit 3 and 4, probably provide you with the best synopsis of your financial position at year end. Does anybody have any questions?
Counsel?
I don't have any questions directly to the audit itself.
Okay.
I just have some. Could you clarify how we legally adopt our budget, and is it appropriate by department or by individual line item?
The town of Southern Shores actually adopts their budget by department, and that's pretty common throughout Dare County and across North Carolina.
I have one other question. That is, is there any state agency review this when you're finished? Do you have to send it somewhere, or?
I submit this audit to the local government commission, and they review it, and they approved it on October the 31st.
Is there a specific time it has to be to them, or?
The audit is supposed to be into them by October 31st. However, you have until the 1st of December to submit it without having to redo. They would make you redo your contract if you didn't have it done by December 1st.
Okay, and the other question is, what do what kind of tests do they apply to see if we're doing everything properly?
They have a checklist that they go by, very similar to the checklist that, I go by when I do your audit. They're not really looking for, they're not auditing you when they look at your financial statement. They're really looking at it for format, just to make sure the format and everything is correct, that it's presented in accordance with accounting principles. Things change from year to year, and quite often they're looking just to make sure that you've implemented those changes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions for you, Teresa. Can you comment on your working relationship with the town's finance officer and the budget officer? Is it a cooperative arrangement with you? Are they forthcoming?
They are forthcoming. I'm here for about a week when I do the audit, usually sometime in August. And just to give you a little bit of, just to tell you a little bit about what I do when I'm here, one of the first things that I do is, obviously get the budget, and I read the minutes just to see what kind of budget approvals and budget amendments have been approved during the year, just to kind of get an overview of what's happened over the period that I'm auditing. But I've never experienced any issues with either your finance officer or your town manager. They're both have both been, very easy to work with.
Thank you, thank you. Is it more advantageous for the town to outsource its payroll or do it in-house? We've had some questions about this. I just want to see what your thoughts are on that.
I've been auditing the town for a number of years. The town of Southern Shores is small, and you don't have a lot of employees. From an audit standpoint, I think it's advantageous that you outsource your payroll. One of those reasons is for internal control purposes. Salaries are one of the largest expenses that the town pays. I think you certainly have staff that could handle the processing of payroll, but I think it's a good internal control to actually have that outsourced and done outside, because it provides good segregation of duties. It also keeps you from having to have payroll processing software, and you don't have to have somebody on staff that keeps up with all of the employment law changes. You're able to outsource that to somebody that has that expertise. I think you pay in the range of $7,400 or something like that, excuse me, which I think is a pretty good bang for your buck. Your salaries are about $1.5 million a year. So again, for me, I think the best thing about it is the internal control that I think it adds to your accounting system here. Otherwise, you've got one person that is processing, a whole lot of information. I think this provides a good balance there.
Thank you. I got one question more. Is the town complying with all its bidding and procurement statutes, all the things we're required to do, and is it complying with our own purchasing and bidding policy?
I can tell you the things that I looked at, you are. Obviously when I come in, I don't look at 100% of the transactions. I have to limit my scope, and I have to do some sampling. But, certainly on the transactions that I looked at, that I sampled, I didn't see any issues.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. David, anything? Jody? No. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. The recommended budget amendment number 4, increase the police department's special separation allowance. I'll call on the town manager to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is budget amendment number 4 being recommended to you tonight for this fiscal year. Basically, the auditor did make reference to this in the audit, but I'm proposing to you an amendment to the town's current budget, and this would increase the amount of appropriation to the police department's special separation allowance for law enforcement officers, which is a benefit for retirees, and it is required by state law. Well after this year's budget was adopted, the town received what's in your packet, as Schedule A of the actuarial valuation, which was conducted last December 2013. And without the benefit of that valuation at the time, we budgeted $17,000 as an expense in the 14-15 budget. However, as you can see from the actuarial valuation, based on the recent recommendation of the auditor in her audit, the town should now increase this amount to account for the anticipated payout to a recent town retiree from the police department, and also to continue to bill for future retirees as recommended in the audit. So I'm recommending that you fund revenue for this budget amendment out of the town's unrestricted fund balance, and the amount is $37,000. That would catch us up for this fiscal year for the current retiree, and then continue to bill for future retirements that are anticipated. So the budget amendment number 4 is recommended to you in the amount of $37,000. The revenues from undesignated fund balance to the police special separation allowance.
Thank you, Peter. Do I have a motion to amend the budget to reflect this increased $37,000?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Second.
You got it.
Any discussion?
No, I don't have any.
So I heard you.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion's made and carried. Back to my agenda here for a second. This time I'd like to ask the people here to present the Dare County Comprehensive Transportation Plan to us, Resolution 2014-11-02. Good evening.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Carrie Morrow. I'm with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and I've got Angela Welsh with Albemarle RPO. And I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about the draft comprehensive transportation plan that we've been working on for a while now. I guess I can use this. Sorry, what? There's a button on the side. Am I going the wrong way? Where am I pointing? Okay, all right. So the objective of the presentation tonight is just to give a brief explanation of the process that we've been going through, inform you of what we've done so far and the next steps, and possibly adopting the plan. So who was involved in the comprehensive transportation plan process? It was a number of people, I think around 15 people. I was a representative from NCDOT. Angela from the RPO was involved. We had all the planners from all of the towns and as well as the county were involved. We had a few just interested citizens as well. And we formed a steering committee that met periodically throughout the development of the plan. So to give information, I know I've been before this board before, but to remind you about what exactly a CTP is. It's a long-range multimodal plan for a town, or sometimes it's a group of towns or a county. In this case, it does encompass all of Dare County. And it's a concept for a broad range of improvements over a 25 to 30-year planning period. So we're looking, for this plan, we're looking at the horizon year of the year 2040. So it is very long range and multimodal in that we look at not only highway, but we looked at bicycle, pedestrian, transit, and in the case of Dare County, ferry as well. And I want to highlight that it's a vision plan. There's no funding attached to anything. We're not talking about projects. We're talking about going through a process of identifying deficiencies in the transportation system and addressing them with proposed improvements that are not fiscally constrained. It is a high-level, broad vision plan. It was developed cooperatively. Again, I talked about the different stakeholders that were involved in developing the plan. And we incorporated land use plans from throughout the county and incorporated goals, went through a process of identifying goals. And again, the elements include highway, public transportation, bicycle, pedestrian, and ferry and waterway. Again, can't highlight this enough that it is different than projects that you may be familiar with, projects that are in our transportation improvement program, which are fiscally constrained projects. This is different. We're looking at long-range plans that have a 25 to 30 year horizon year, and there is a process that it does play a role in the transportation prioritization. And I was actually going to let Angela talk about that a little bit because she's involved with that.
I'm just going to touch on it real quick. It's really a complicated process, but in July of 2013, the governor signed in the new Strategic Transportation Investments Bill, which basically has revamped how we fund transportation-related projects throughout the state. Projects have to compete now based on criteria that the state develops, the RPO develops, and the DOT Division 1 develops. I wanted to, again, stress kind of what Carrie is talking about here. The DOT does not have to pay for these projects, and neither does the town. There's no funding attached to it. There's no requirement for you to fund these projects. There's no requirement for you to ever build these projects. It's, again, a high-level plan, looking out into the future. The RPO does, every 5 years, bring this plan back up and come to the towns and the county to see if you want to amend it. If you don't want to amend it, that's fine. If you want to amend it in 2 years, we can look into that as well. So we don't want the focus to be that these projects are going to be built. And to be honest, the money is not there anymore. The legislature is looking into what they're going to do about how they're going to fund transportation projects throughout the state. The gas tax isn't bringing in the money. The federal money, dried up this summer. If a stopgap measure hadn't been passed, there would have been 108 projects dropped. That would have been 22,000 jobs throughout the state of North Carolina. So they did pass a stopgap measure, but we can't depend on that money. Really, they're looking at bike and ped projects as, is it something the state, the DOT, needs to fund through gas tax and DMV funds. So just kind of wanted to touch on that. I know there are concerns about things being built or not built. This plan hasn't, right now, actually, Southern Shores has no, projects that they're requesting funding for with this round of funding. We'll go through it again in another 2 years. At that time, we'll come in around, pick up projects, and see Southern Shores at that time can submit some. Another thing I wanted to touch on, if a project is funded, the DOT just doesn't come in and build it. We do have to go through public workshops, things like that, and have the public involved in it. We don't just come in and build, or the DOT doesn't just come in and build anything. You go through the design process and all that.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Jan.
Do I need to back up on anything, or? Okay. Do I need to back up on anything I was saying? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Just a little closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Oh, Ben.
I forgot where I was now. The DOT, if you do request funding and you do score and get funding, the DOT has to go through the design process and stuff like that. We don't just come in here and build things. Again, there's that opportunity for public comment at that time as well. And turn it back over to Carrie. Did anybody have any questions about what I just
No,
said?
thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Angela. So this slide shows a typical CTP schedule. We go through and identify current year data, which this was based on 2012 data. Then go through an analysis process, then projecting data, like I said, to the future year of 2040. Analyzing deficiencies, we identified several deficiencies, developed different alternatives that could potentially address those deficiencies, and that's how we came up with the recommended plan, which the plan itself is the set of maps. I just want to clarify that. this is the phase that we're in now is adoption. We're seeking local adoption with all the governing jurisdictions, that the 6 towns as well as the county. Then we'll go for regional adoption of the plan, which will be through the Rural Planning Organization, getting endorsement from them. And then finally to the NCDOT Board of Transportation for state adoption. The technical report in this case usually comes later, but it's complete. It still needs some tweaking here and there, but there is a report that goes along with it. And then, corridor protection and programming are kind of the things that come through prioritization. I just want to briefly touch on the different facility types for highway, since there are different symbologies that are used, and just go over kind of what that means. So freeway is kind of the highest level, the functional purpose being high mobility, low access. So those are going to be your higher speed roadways, 55 miles per hour or greater. No complete control of access, meaning no driveways, no traffic signals. You'll have a cross-section of minimum of 4 lanes with a median. In this case, there are no freeways recommended, so we'll move on. Okay. Expressway, which is kind of a green symbol on the maps, and there is at least one on there, I believe for US 64. Again, high mobility, but low to moderate access. So we're looking at 45 to 60 miles per hour, limited control access, no traffic signals, and again, 4-lane minimum with a median. Having some problems here. Oh, okay. Oh, I think I went too far. Okay, Boulevard is next. That's a red symbol on the maps. So moderate mobility, low to moderate access, 30 to 55 miles per hour. There would be limited control of access in some cases. Usually there is some access management on boulevards. Traffic signals are allowed in those cases, and you'll have a minimum cross-section of 2 lanes with a median. So, there would be encouraged right in, right out access. And then you have your major and minor thoroughfares, which are black lines on the map, moderate to low mobility and high access. So no control of access, 25 to 55 miles per hour, and the cross-section can be as small as 2 lanes, no median. All right, so to go through the set of maps. Okay. To go through this set of maps, the first map is the adoption map. So there's really not much information given here. It's just to document the dates when all the governing bodies are going to adopt the plan. The second map is the highway map, the large highway map. Because of the geography of Dare County, it was hard to really see a lot of detail, so I'll show you the inset maps. In inset A, we show kind of the beach area, 158, and you can see some recommendations on 64. And then inset B and C, we show Hatteras Island. And I think the next slide talks, a little bit more in detail about, I would say the major recommendation here that is made in this plan is for improvements to US 158 for the entire stretch from Currituck County to US 64. So, the identified problem that we found was that it's over or near capacity for the future year 2040 for that whole entire stretch. And we know it's a very important road here. It's the major road, the primary north-south connector throughout the county, and or at least in the beach area of the county. There's a documented safety problem. 18 sections of the roadway, as well as 45 intersections along 158, that stretch of 158, have been identified as high crash locations. Of course, there's numerous businesses that are located along 158. The proposal in this plan is for that roadway to be a 4-lane boulevard all the way from US 64 to the Currituck County line. This would reduce congestion because of the access management, aspect of a boulevard. It's consistent with something called the Strategic Highway Corridor Vision Plan, which is a statewide plan, again, like a high-level plan that designates, currently is in place, that designates facility types for the major roadways throughout North Carolina. And furthermore, looking at the report of this, this plan, the steering committee really encourages a corridor study to be made for 158, since we know that, you know, not one cross-section is going to work for the entire length of 158. So to talk about the transit element, this map shows what we have recommended for the northern portion for Duck, and this would, you know, be relevant here. A connector bus. Right now, Dare County only has on-demand service, and this plan would include some fixed routes. So that would include this element, which would be a Duck and Southern Shores connector. And on the next slide, we show loop service in Kill Devil Hills, Kitty Hawk, and Nags Head. And that would be a loop service that would include US 158 as well as NC 12. Then there's also a connector to Roanoke Island that we've recommended to kind of give people access to Roanoke Island and the attractions there. And also some park and rides we've recommended. So I'll start with kind of at the top of the slide. It points out two parking ride locations, one on Roanoke Island and the other one in Nags Head. Those two are intended for private water transportation, you know, between those two locations. So that's not something that NCDOT would necessarily facilitate, but it would allow for that transportation to take place since there was interest there. Also, a park and ride just south of Whalebone Junction, and that would be to facilitate people leaving their cars behind to get on the Roanoke Island connector. And then finally, in Inset C, the Hatteras Ferry park and ride, which would be a park and ride to facilitate passenger ferry, which is a possibility in the future between Hatteras and Ocracoke. The draft bicycle map, I'm going to move to the next slide so you can see some more detail. So I think Southern Shores is shown in Inset A. There are numerous recommendations for both bicycle and pedestrian throughout the different communities. And I'll point out that the yellow symbology is for multi-use trails, which are both used for bicycle and pedestrian transportation. So so those trails are going to show up on both the bicycle and the pedestrian maps. And this just shows the two locations in Hatteras. And the pedestrian maps are very similar. A lot of the places where you saw bicycle recommendations, you also see very similar recommendations for sidewalks or pedestrian paths throughout the county. What's next? We actually went to Dare County for adoption or for a presentation this past Monday. The decision was tabled until next month, the mid-December meeting. They really wanted to hear from all the towns first and see what direction the towns were going in before they put it to a vote. Nags Head, we did a presentation this morning, but that's kind of incorrect. We just did a presentation this morning. They are doing, they're going to actually put it to a vote next month at their meeting next month. After we leave here, we'll be going to Duck, to their meeting tonight. And then next month, we go to Kitty Hawk, Manio, and Kill Devil Hills. And then again, Nags Head and Dare County will probably put it to a vote next month. And then, provided everything goes well, we anticipate hopefully being able to go to Albemarle Rural Planning Organization for endorsement in January, and then finally to DOT's Board of Transportation in February. Here's my contact information, as well as Gretchen Byram, who is the Division Planning Engineer with Division 1 of NCDOT, as well as Angela's information. I believe that is it, and I'll take any questions that you have for me.
Jody, any questions? David, do you have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, can I add something real quick? I think I meant to touch on this. With this new STI formula, what's happening is the RPO used to ask the counties, the 10 counties in our region, what projects they wanted every 2 years, and we'd put them in and we'd score them. This was about a 2-hour process. The STI law now takes the politics out of it, and we're going through, we have to score them based on certain criteria, go through public comment periods, 2 public comment periods, and then before we can actually put them in for requests for funding. Also, what came about with the STI was that if a project was not in a plan, you cannot request funding. They did that, they enforced that with this round with bicycle and pedestrian projects. So if you had a project that you wanted funded and it wasn't in an adopted plan, you could not request funding. They're going to start doing that with the highway projects as well. So DARE's CTP has been under development since about 2011. So they've been kind of, you're coming up towards the end of it. We've got 5 counties in the RPO that are still pretty much in the beginning stages. So we're hopefully they'll hold off a couple of years, or at least 2 years. Otherwise, those highway projects that other counties want funded they won't be able to request funding for. So that's kind of why the CTP is important now. They did replace thoroughfare plans from the 90s. They are the new thoroughfare plans. Also wanted to touch on that there was quite a couple opportunities for the public to be involved throughout this process. There were public workshops, and a survey, which is in the back of the documentation, was also done as well.
Thank you.
No. I have one question. If we don't do anything with this tonight, you're going to the county when? In other words, what kind of time frame do we have?
They indicated that they would put it on their December 15th
The December
meeting.
15th meeting, thank you. No, okay.
Yes, ma'am, you couldn't hear. Well, go ahead and ask your question.
It's a connector route, so I'll go back to that slide. I'm sorry, what? Yes, bus. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
is a bus, yeah.
Council, do you have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
In looking at this, council, I think I'd like to know more about it and do a little more research on exactly what's involved. It looks like the only thing that really impacts us is a Dogwood Trail bike trail that's proposed for the future. There's too many unanswered questions about that particular issue to make a decision right now. I'd like to table this ask for a motion that we table this to a future date, probably our next meeting in November.
I think that using that that particular corridor is going to be very, very complicated. And I think we need to look at it more if we bring it up next month. So I would motion that we table it at this time.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? The one thing I would add, just to amplify what Leo said, the Dogwood Trail multi-use path or bike path or pedestrian path or bicycle trail is really a pretty challenging thing to take on. I'd like to know more about how we can make it work if we can. So I would say I'd ask for a vote to table this to the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Rasco, Newton right-of-way encroachment permit application. I'm sorry, Wes Haskett.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to speak for Wes, and he's here to answer questions as well. We put this on the agenda and kept it on to indicate to the council how this process works. I don't believe any action is required of the council on this particular application, but this, I believe, is one of the first ones we've had since the ordinance change a couple of years ago. This is a request from the applicant to place an obstruction in the right-of-way in front of his property for the purpose of stormwater runoff management. In particular, he's requesting the permission to install a 5-inch channel drain across his driveway with a 4-inch drain line to a natural depression in the land to take care of runoff to and from the street. And I've included in there in your booklet a packet showing a drawing of the proposed encroachment. This has been reviewed by the town engineer, and he has consulted with the owner and consulted back with Mr. Haskett and myself, and finds that it's probably an appropriate encroachment for this property. The change in the code section changed the approval process from the town council to allow us to approve this administratively if we found that there was no problem with the request. We find no problem with the request, and upon approval, it will be reduced to a right-of-way encroachment agreement that will be recorded. So if you have any questions at all about the encroachment, I'll be glad to answer, and also any concerns, but this is the way the process works at this point. We would approve it administratively and then have the owner sign an agreement, and that would be determination of it, and he would construct the an encroachment. So I'll be glad to try to answer any questions on it.
Is that agreement then recorded? So
Yes, sir.
that future
That's correct. It's
purchaser
recorded
would be
to
aware
put
of.
the world on notice and future owners of the property that that is an encroachment that the town allowed in its street right away.
So I understand, this is administrative action, it's not something council has to act on.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We're going to, unless the council has a problem with it, we're going to go ahead and approve this one, and this will be how it works in the future under the ordinance, under the new change in the code.
Any comment?
No.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
We're fine with that, Peter, thank you. Appointment of a reconstruction task force, the town planner this time.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Coming to you tonight, asking for an appointment or annual appointment of a reconstruction task force. This is in accordance with Section 12-69 of the Town Code, which is Chapter 12, Emergency Management, which states that the Town Code requires an annual appointment of a reconstruction task force, which will be activated upon the declaration of a building moratorium following a major storm event. This task force is responsible for advising the town council on a wide range of post-storm reconstruction issues. It would consist of 2 elected officials, 2 planning board members, town staff, a representative from the building or realty company, or community rather, 1 representative from the SSCA, 1 representative from the CPOA, and in your packets you should have received a list of recommendations. However, number 10 and 11, the SSCA and CPOA representative, I was able to contact both presidents for those organizations. And Mr. Jim Kelleher, the president of the SSCA, did advise that he would be willing to serve as their representative. And Chris Nason, or Carlos Mercado rather, advised that Chris Nason would be the representative for the CPOA. Other than that, the recommended individuals are as shown in your packet. Any questions?
Now, what do you need from us, Wes?
We would need an appointment of this body.
A motion to appoint this body?
Yes, sir.
That's fine. Can I have a motion to appoint this body to act as this reconstruction task force?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll defer to David.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's made and carried. Thank you,
The only
Wes.
other comment I made is I hope we never have to use them.
Exactly. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Town manager's remarks. Peter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight's report from the manager start out that the audit that the auditor has presented will now be online on the town's website tomorrow morning. So any citizen, of course, can review the audit just like anyone else. Did want to announce to you that the planned sidewalk installation on Juniper Trail beside Town Bank will be commencing this week. It's staked out now, and that should be in the next 10 days. Also announcing to you that work has started on the planned capital improvement project for Pintail Court cul-de-sac. That should be completed in the next 2 weeks. The contractor will be working out there beginning the end of this week or the first of next week. The 100% design plans for the Tall Pine Bridge replacement project should be here in the month of December. Is the projected date for council to review during the month of January, along with the DOT review. February is the target date for the town to actually acquire the small piece of right-of-way that's necessary on the northwest corner for the bridge replacement. That being the case, that would put us into the moratorium for the primary nursery area of the canal after February, so we would not be able to do any demolition work until October the 1st. So right now, as we stand, the projected commencement date for demolition, if all this falls into place on the plans for the bridge replacement, would be October 1. So 6 to 9 months after that would be a completion date. So that is the projection at this point in time. Hopefully the plans will be here by the end of December so we can begin that review process in January. I did want to remind council and the public that Madeline Henley of Walking Stick Associates will be on the agenda for the council's advertised November 18th at 9 a.m. meeting. She is to give a report on the October 2nd special meeting that council held in the Kitty Hawk Elementary School, where citizens presented comments on suggested solutions for increased seasonal traffic. Again, Ms. Henley is going to give a report on what actually occurred at the meeting and her compilation of suggestions, and hopefully will be guiding and giving advice to council on what to do next with how to address and consider those suggestions. November the 11th will be our Veterans Day holiday, of course, and there will be a ceremony here at the town. The annual Veterans Day ceremony will be at the Flagpole Pavilion. And this year's speaker will be Southern Shores resident Lieutenant Colonel Leanne St. Laurent, United States Air Force, retired. So we're pleased to have her as the speaker for this year. And again, that is at 11 o'clock outside in front of Town Hall on the 11th of November. I did want to brief the council on one matter that's come up continuously and comment about the cell tower situation at the Y on Duck Road. I just wanted to clarify again, and I know council knows this, but for the record, the town's involvement in the SSCA tower is limited to land use and zoning approvals for the site's owner, which of course is the private association, the Southern Shores Civic Association. The town itself has no stakehold in the SSCA's venture, nor any funds being received by the town for this business venture of the SSCA. During the application process, the SSCA was treated just like any other landowner applicant in that land use process. And pursuant to the town code, the SSCA, as the property owner, was entitled per the zoning to receive a conditional use permit to accommodate the use on the site. And that is the town's involvement at this point is in monitoring the conditional use permit and building permit that was issued. So that is the town's only involvement in it. And again, I know you know this, but the SSCA is the landowner. It is a venture in a written lease between the SSCA and the tower builder and ultimate tower user, which we are not privy to. Again, we just issued this, the town just issued the conditional use permit. Another item that I wanted to brief you on is the ongoing beach stabilization project for our annual use of funds for that. This year we'll begin again in January with planting stabilization grasses and sea oats in January and February, and again in late April and May. And notices will go out to the oceanfront owners that they need to repair or reconstruct their sand fencing to accommodate for us when we come by to do the grass plantings. So every owner will be notified again, and we'll be doing that beginning late January. I did want to respond to several inquiries about the median in East Dogwood. As you know, the Public Works Department does maintain our entrances and our medians, and after a long period of time of receiving line-of-sight complaints, the Public Works Department did remove the southwest cactus species there, and they will be grading their seeding now, and in the spring, they'll be doing some appropriate plantings. And I'm sure Public Works always takes suggestions and comments and recommendations, but that is a Public Works project. And again, they were removed from public safety by residents who continue to plane for line of sight. So that was the story on the removal of those. One other item that I did want to address, in your December meeting, there will be a resolution, as we do every year, that will outline the meeting notices for next year. It'll outline the regular meetings, and it will also this year outline the schedule for your 4 council committees again. There will be one meeting on there that is a proposed retreat, and as all retreats are, it will be an open meeting unless there is a reason for it to be a closed meeting, which I do not anticipate. But that is an open meeting, just like all other retreats have been for the town of Southern Shores. So that's my report, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Peter. I'm glad you addressed the line of sight considerations on East Dogwood. We've had a lot of people call me, stop me. They can't see oncoming traffic coming westbound on East Dogwood as they proceed eastbound down Dogwood Trail. That's the reason why those plants were taken out. And they will be replaced with an appropriate lower growing plant that would not block people's line of sight. Just a couple of comments. I've asked 2 of our residents, pardon me, I'm sorry. Let's talk to Wes first. I mean, to Ben first.
I won't take up your time. I don't have anything to report.
Thanks, Ben. I almost forgot you.
It's all right.
Just a couple of things I want to touch on. I have asked 2 of our residents, Elizabeth Moray and Jim Connors, to serve on our Capital Improvement Plan Committee. Both have agreed to do so, and we welcome their participation. I personally look forward to working with both of them. We've met with them at one of our meetings, and we got some good positive feedback from them and some good suggestions and good recommendations about how we approach some of these capital improvement projects. There are a lot of rumors and misinformation being disseminated by some of our residents, and I want to address just a few of these. These are things that I've been told from residents in our town that they've heard, they were told themselves. Council apparently has a very secret plan to build a bike trail from the north end of Chickahaw Trail to Scuppernong across private property. That's not true. I was even told that the staff didn't know about this. It was so secret. Well, I don't know about either. So if it's really a well-kept secret, if we're going to do that. I think what may have triggered that, or that person to tell someone that, was the fact that some months ago, one of our residents, who happens to be a pretty ardent biker, asked me about that trail that connects Chickahaw Trail to Sea Oats, which is a nice sidewalk, but it's not real good for biking. And he asked me if there's any possibility of that trail being widened, and my response to him was, well, it belongs to the Chickahaw Property Owners Association, but I'll certainly talk to their president about what his thoughts are about it. So I approached Carlos Mercado and asked him if he had any more complaints or people talked to him. He said, yes, he had bikers complain that might be able to pass somebody, and walkers do too. But he couldn't do much about it because he thinks he has right-of-way issues with it being able to widen the trail. So that may have been where that whole rumor started, but I don't know the answer to that. But that's a possibility. Another thing I was told recently was that council had approved a hotel complex for the Southern Shores Crossing Shopping Center. I don't know when that happened. I wasn't here, and I have not heard it from anybody else, but it was something that somebody was told. the town plans to build a bicycle and pedestrian bridge from Fairway Drive to Beech Tree Trail. That was a option or recommendation from the Bike and Pedestrian Committee as an alternative to using the Dogwood Trail as our primary bike path through town or multi-use path through town. There's no plan to build a bridge. Just the plan that the Bike and Pedestrian plan that was presented to us has not been accepted. And we have, when we will accept it, if we do accept it, we will certainly be looking at what it recommends, but there's nothing on the horizon that I see right now to do anything with a bridge across that canal. Their recommendations have not been acted on, and we may have to have them come back and present some of those recommendations to us again. The town has a comprehensive tree removal plan and a comprehensive street widening plan. We don't have that. We do have a capital improvement plan which addresses improvements to our aging streets and other infrastructure needs like our canal system. The town plans to connect Fairway Drive and Duckwoods Drive by road. You may have seen this on Facebook or on emails. The Bike and Pedestrian Committee did discuss improving the existing path between the two streets or between the two cul-de-sacs. Recognize this land is not town property, just to provide a safer passage for bikers and walkers between the two streets. But there's no plan to make that a through road between Duckwoods Drive and Fairway Drive. It's both, all that's private property. Fairway Drive, the south end, and the cul-de-sac, and in between the cul-de-sacs is all private property. The other thing I'm hearing is the town is destroying our maritime forest. I can't comment whether that's true or false, but I can tell you this: more trees have been removed to develop the 4 or 5 lots where homes are now under construction than have been removed for all the street rebuilds combined. I'm not going to argue with you about what should happen, but I'm just telling you what is happening. And the town is not removing as many streets as being removed to clear 1 or 2 lots, and that's a fact. We have no ordinance preventing somebody from clearing a lot to build a house. I can't answer that. They had a plan which a committee that met for years to come up with a tree plan, and I don't think it was ever adopted.
Yes, there is a plan because our builder told us we had to have 70% natural trees on our property left in order to build the house. That's correct. So it's there.
The builder told him something.
What I wanted to do was to remove the gum balls, which are a pain, and replace them with maple trees and crepe myrtles. And I was told no.
I don't know that.
Our builder was David Price, North Beach Builders, who's been on this land a long, long time.
I'm not going to argue with you. I have not seen that. I knew we had a committee that worked for years on a vegetation plan for lots, and I don't know whatever happened to that. It's not on, as far as I know, on the books right now. I don't know if it is. I don't know that.
There may have been the SSCA, ARB, or CPOA, or ARB gets into that, and they have, both of them have the CPOA, because I've been on that group, does have a definite set of covenants, and they send people out to mark their trees. Now, I'm talking about CPOA. SSCA used to, I don't know what they still do.
Go ahead.
I had to have our lot approved by this council and the engineers of this town in order to build my house.
Yeah.
And I had to prove that the house was going to be 70% natural with trees left in order for us to build. And it was less than 70%. Now, I have put additional crepe myrtles on my property, which has enhanced everything in that back there. And Mr. Rasmussen's been back to my property, and my neighbors have been very impressed with what we have done back there. But I had some severe problems with this town when we were building our house.
I'm not questioning you. My town planner was here to ask a question about it, so I can't confirm what you're saying or not. I'll take your word for it. I believe you.
2012. Mr. Gallo?
There's nothing that I've seen in the ordinances that relate to trees. That doesn't mean that someone didn't have a problem with some situation. There's a lot of different facts that matter. My guess would be that Mr. Holland, excuse me, Leo, Commissioner Holland is probably right that it's more likely to be a covenant issue, but not knowing what the situation was, not seeing the application, I didn't have anything to do with approving it, so I'm not sure what happened.
Well, it seems obvious that we want to protect the trees, and if people want to do that, why don't we create a committee to create an ordinance so that we can have an ordinance that protects these trees? We're taking a talk about it.
It's a maritime board.
Done this for the past 3 meetings. Let's create a committee, create an ordinance.
Good suggestion. We'll look into that. Yeah,
I can tell you from past experience, that we did have a vegetation committee, and it met for 7 years. And the only thing that was ever done from the standpoint of 30% versus 70% is 30% lot coverage of the building as a limit. There was never anything passed that said you had to keep 70% of your trees. And the reason the committee ended up not going further than it did, the difficulty from the council reviewing it and from input from the citizens was, it worked itself down to the point where we were trying to say, you had to plant crepe myrtle. Or if you took out a tree that was 4 inches wide, you had to replace it with some other kind of situation. And it became a problem of private property rights. It's my property, I should be able to do what I need to do with it. So I don't have a, don't shake your head at me. I don't have a problem with reactivating and relooking at it. I just don't want people to think it's really simple to do something like this. And we can certainly look at it and see what we can do with it. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure what that means, but
yes, sir.
Tom, several years ago under John Smith, he had mayor's chats before the meeting. Because the meetings I've attended, there's been a lot of questions, and you're referring to what you've heard, people have told you, but I haven't heard any answers to a lot of these questions that even came up tonight. Besides the cactus. When are those questions answered? It might be helpful if we went back to before this meeting, he had before this meeting, and we'll give John Smith credit for that. He had an open meeting for residents to come, speak to the mayor and the town manager, and answer questions and get things out in the open. Why, this is a big problem. Maybe that's why there's so many tales going around town, because questions are asked here and we all go home and nothing happens.
You don't get an answer. Yeah.
But I think the people, all they're asking for, and we saw it in the vote yesterday, in the national vote, people they want to know, they want to see openness, they just want answers, they want an action, this whole thing with the trees, it's not just the trees, it was a quick take, it was a lot of other things. Maybe you do have reasons, or but if there was just more openness and give us a chance to come and talk to you like you're our neighbors, like Jerry just said, go back to what we were years ago and adopt some of this stuff.
Not a bad idea at all, Ursula, and I appreciate your comments. Yes, John.
Just as part of information, we did at one time also have a vegetation committee. Judy was on the council at that time. And we worked on it for about a year. We did not come up with any recommendations. What we were trying to do was to establish what the evidence area should be. Also had the question of private property versus public property.
Right.
The jurisdiction of the committee would touch private property concerns. We put out a booklet on this. And then one day, arbitrarily, the council rush anybody, just simply put it, and Julie, you were there, and you seconded the motion, terminated the committee, just like that. Although we were trying to determine the relationship of clear cutting. The committee began primarily because there was a citizen protest against clear cutting. And from there, we worked for about a year. But they gave you a copy of that report when we first came on board. So unfortunately, nothing was ever done on that. The housing boom went down, and it was no problem. So there's some places now that can clear cut. But there is a report out. Maybe you'd like to take a look at it.
There is.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, ma'am.
Directed to Jody. Jody, based on what you have informed me, and I have a letter from the city, I'm going to dig it up, stating that I have to do this when I built the house, then that means that I can cut the gumballs down and replace them with crepe myrtles, because I would really like to get rid of them.
I would really like for you to dig out the letter. Personally, I'd love to see it, and I think the town manager would too, to say who and how they directed you. I think that'd be wonderful, because maybe you can send us a source to go back and say what's happening.
There was a big discussion between our builder and myself and my husband, and this is exactly what he got from the engineer that was on, at that point, I don't know if it was Joe or whomever, this was 2 years ago, stating that we had to do this. And they went through and they marked the trees that we had to leave on our property.
I think,
The property next door to us, which is Mr. Joyner, his property is totally clear.
and I understand your feeling.
In the 90s.
I understand your feeling about the gumballs. And I really would like for us to be able to see a copy of it, because also normally one of our engineers is not involved in a building situation unless there's something really unusual. So if you could get that for us, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Now, I guess.
I appreciate you clarifying about the retreat. I would like to know why there is a retreat and how it is that out of retreat can come a vision statement that contravenes the vision statement of the land use plan that was based on complete community support.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond to that?
Yes, sir.
That vision statement came out of that advertised open meeting retreat. And what, may I finish? And was given to CalMA immediately for review. And CalMA concurred with that vision statement, and even tried to encourage the town of Southern Shores to amend its land use plan at the time to incorporate that language into the land use plan. It was not done at the time because of whatever reason, I can't remember, in 2013. CalMA was immediately notified of that vision statement, was notified of it even prior to council considering its adoption.
And Mr. Rasko, was that vision statement presented to the public?
It was right in the minutes.
It was.
There was no public hearing held for adoption of the vision statement. The meeting was noticed to the public, yes.
But there was no comment on the vision statement?
The meeting was noticed to the public, and I can't recall who was here at the meeting, but it was certainly noticed to the meeting.
It was an all-day.
Afternoon,
it was an
all day,
all-day
basically,
meeting.
but that was taken up.
Retreats are all-day meetings, and basically,
I can't remember in 2013. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, Al.
Yeah, just one question on his vision statement. A question I have, you're talking now about the rumors, right? What is going on between the town and a piece of property at 43 Cypress Lane?
Nothing. That was addressed the same evening after we had a closed session, discussed the acquisition of that property. We came back into open session and decided that we asked the town manager to look into that, the value of the property and what it would cost us to be able to purchase the property. We were looking at it as a passive recreation area for our citizens to use. We were, as I recall, the conversation with the owner was that she was not interested in selling it. And we decided not to pursue it any further than that. We actually discussed it that night, but no one was here. It's like a lot of meetings, when we go to closed session, everybody leaves. No, I want to say that. I really appreciate, I don't appreciate what you said tonight, many of you. I appreciate that you were here, and I appreciate we're getting people to come out to our meetings. We don't get that kind of participation normally, as you all probably know. Yes, David?
I just have one thing to say, I'm going to make it short. I would like to invite, if you haven't driven by my house lately, the council, everyone in this room to drive by the intersection where I live at East and North Dogwood. Who's responsible for picking up the trash and the barrels that have rolled down in front of the house? The biggest goddamn eyesore in the world is right here in my front yard now. I'd like to thank you all very much. That's all I gotta say, Tom.
I think that's enough, David.
I think that's enough.
We had a public comment section, but you certainly can speak. Yes, go ahead. If you'd like. You don't have to. Well, no, just stay where you are.
I think what we got here is real simple. You ever heard of the Founding Fathers?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
This thing they wrote, it was called the Bill of Rights. I'm sure most of you don't remember that. That was long since been abolished somehow. My name is Forrest, and that means large group of trees. And if my pursuit of happiness is wandering through a large group of trees, you fellas shouldn't be cutting them down. And you're looking like the head man, is that correct?
No, sir, I certainly am not.
Nobody.
This is the head man, the town council.
The buck stops nowhere. The buck stops nowhere. When you get to the bottom line, it was the computer's fault.
Excuse me, sir. I must like to say one thing. I don't, council makes the decisions of what projects will be done and what projects won't be done. Our town manager implements our decisions. He does what he's supposed to do. He implements our decisions. He's our manager. We don't tell him what trees to cut down. We tell him what streets we'd like to see improved and what streets we don't want improved, this time, based on our budget constraints. And we accept full responsibility for those decisions. We've listened to all the people here speak tonight. We've listened to it for the last 2 months. We understand what the people think and what they feel and what they how upset they are. We've got all that. It bothers me a hell of a lot, but that doesn't matter whether it bothers me or not. I feel it's my job to do that. Not to bother people, but to do the job I was brought here to do, which was to continue to work on our infrastructure. Where'd they bring me from? Right here for the last 12 years. I was born in Virginia. I've been here, I built a home here in 1990. Started coming here in 1961. I built a home here in 1990. I started coming here in 1961. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Council, anyone else have comments? Jody?
No, I don't have anything.
Leo?
I just have one question for Peter. This is after we award our contract for a specific project and we've got the prime contractor. Do we have, the town have any interaction with the prime contractor selecting his subcontractors?
No, sir, Mr. Holland, that's their prerogative to bid out and select their subs. We do comment to them on ones we think might be qualified or not qualified, but it's ultimately their decision. And I will comment on the specifics of tree removal subcontracting. In the case of capital improvements to streets where there are underground utilities and other lines that might be involved on the larger projects, always the tree removal company is a subcontractor of the prime. So we don't have anything to do with the actual bidding of that. That is the contractor who bids that out and hires the sub. And of course, the tree disposal, limb disposal is built into their bid and their ultimate contract, just like it is with any resident who hires a tree contractor to take trees down.
Does the prime have a specific type of vetting process of the sub, or do you know?
We are familiar with about 5 or 6 tree removal companies that the prime street contractors do use locally. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment on the vegetation ordinance one more time? I think y'all had a discussion about that got into the history of it. We have continued to look at the minutes of the town and the history of the town, the vegetation ordinance that was proposed at one point or discussed at one point. We've also looked at other vegetation ordinances from other nearby towns. We have had discussions with the two larger homeowners associations here in Southern Shores about whether there's any interest in proffering that idea again. And we have taken the position at a staff level that we're certainly open to any direction the council would give us, or if he wants to take something to the planning board or whatnot. We've always been open to discussing that and looking at anything about that and learning how we could adapt the vegetation ordinance to individual lots here in Southern Shores. The one caveat that we always put on it, the town planner and myself, is that if anything is ever adopted, it's got to be able to be enforced. We cannot get into a situation where we're a paper tiger and saying one thing and we can't enforce it. So we have looked at a lot of different ordinances, and we're remain open to continue to study that if council ever wants to direct that as far as a planning board initiative. But we also told the private homeowners associations as well as private individuals that anybody could actually come in and request a text amendment and propose something. But in every case, we wanted to make it clear that it had to be something that the staff could actually enforce. It couldn't be a paper tiger situation. If that were to come about and there was a study, I'm sure we would hear from the Outer Banks Association of Realtors and the Outer Banks, the building community as well. Because every time we've talked about stormwater changes for lot coverage, et cetera, of course, they have a great interest in that, and they would be part of any type of discussion with that as well.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
I haven't been coming to these meetings, but I am now, and I will be. And I know you're elected, but are you representing the people of Southern Shores, or do you make those decisions without our input?
I hope I reflect the majority of the people who live in Southern Shores' attitudes. Now, obviously, in this tree situation, I'm probably not doing that, but that certainly is my intent.
Could I answer that? One of the toughest things I've found in being on this council, and it has been totally volunteer on my part, you have to know that, is making that decision. When we know we have a meeting coming up and we've got an agenda items, we get a book with as much information as available to us about the subject. And I study this book at home carefully. And I kind of half make up my mind as to what I think based on this. But then I come to this meeting and I listen. And I hear other ideas because I know I'm only one person thinking, and it's based on my experience with other people and other people within the town. And I may change my mind from what I started out with, and many times I have. I will also tell you that many times I have voted not for what I wanted. If it was my decision personally, I would have voted a different way. But I try to look at this, what is the best for the whole town? Does it impact the whole town? I do my darndest to be as objective as possible, and I'm sure you must know that's difficult. But that's kind of the way we go. So I do feel that I'm representing the people I talk to, what I hear from. I'm influenced by them as well. So there's a lot of factors that come into the whole process. Because I did my research, and when I did my research, the definition of a maritime forest, and I know you don't want to hear this again, but the definition of a maritime forest is it's really a system that involves all the animals and all the plants and everything integrated. And it also says that the minute you cut one street or go in and build one house, it's no longer a maritime forest, it's a forest. But once you've broken that system, you've broken the system. And I know that doesn't make the trees...
I have it right here.
But I got it on the internet to answer your question. From what source? I went through North Carolina forestry people. What I went in and I did is maritime forest and searched, and I can't tell you how many.
Yes.
I'm sorry? There was it went in, I wanted to know what the definition of a maritime forest was. I really wanted to know. And it came back, and it also, in the material that I read, identified that here where we are, the only maritime forests are down here by Nag's Head and one over in Kitty Hawk. That this is a forest, and I'm not trying to downplay the forest, it's just the term is not quite the same.
In houses in Nag's Head already, and we call it a maritime forest. We're destroying what any ability that we have to create and keep it as a maritime force with what we're doing. It may not be the quote definition, but we're destroying any ability to try to keep it looking like one.
Well, now that's what I'm saying. The trees are beautiful, and we love the trees, but we also have, somebody talked about why we do what we do, for example. I feel I've got a fiduciary responsibility to the town. I'm thinking of the town again, that says we have to maintain our assets. When you go through to look the audit, it shows the assets, and the number of our assets are the streets. And if the streets are falling apart, we've got to do something to take care of them. Sometimes...
This idea that you gotta tear trees down because you've got pavement up there, that's not true. I've seen it just this last week.
I've seen those in places too, and it depends on the tree and what kind of root system they have. And I'm not, excuse me, I'm not going to get into an argument with you, okay? This is one of the things that though makes it difficult, is to be able to talk and say, you ask my opinion and where I'm coming from, and I'm trying to tell you. You don't have to agree with me.
Credibility. Did I not hear you say that tree and vegetation committee has been going on for 7 years? And did I not hear the president of that, the person that was in charge of that, say it was 1 year?
Do you want me to, I can go back and...
No, I'm just saying, did I not hear it was a 1 year committee? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
That is credibility, and I'm not going to sit and argue with that either, but I can...
I'm not asking for an argument.
Good.
I'm just stating what I heard in this meeting tonight.
Council?
That's adjourned.
You know, there's things that are more valuable than money sometimes.
Absolutely.
Okay, and when you have something that is as ancient as these trees are, okay, they grew in the same way that the trees down in Nature Conservancy property in Nansay did. They are an asset to the Outer Banks. They are an asset to us as human beings. And when you destroy them to widen roads and put in curves, you're destroying a valued asset. It's not about money, it's about the human spirit. It's about what's inside, all of us. And we have a sense of community.
Real quick, on Route 12, bikers that are, and their garments and everything, they don't go on the bike path. They go on the road.
And we recognize that. And that's why,
They do not, twice almost hit a person, two different ones unfortunately, where they didn't even stop at stop signs.
I see that all the time too. I know exactly what you're saying.
And if we hit them,
You're in trouble.
they bitch at us if we don't respect their turning and everything.
Right. That's an ongoing issue, and we all understand that, we all see it, but I know for a fact that most of the bikers who go out there and go 20, 25 miles an hour do not want to ride on a trail. We understand that. That's one of the reasons tonight we decided to table the discussion about the Dogwood Trail bike trail.
But I'm saying, even if you put one there, they won't use it.
Yeah, we understand that. We understand that.
Route 12, you're nervous because the sand and everything, the gravel.
The
You're going 45 miles an hour.
The reason for some sort of a trail on Dogwood Trail, not a bike path or a multi-use path, would be a pedestrian sidewalk like we have from the school to the country club. We might be able to engineer that in a way that would be safe for people to walk back and forth, north and south on Dogwood, and not impact the vegetation that's there to a great degree. We're pretty certain we could do that.
That's not for me. Why not leave them in and out like you did at that place?
That's what I just said. We could maybe engineer to do that.
Exactly.
You're not listening. I said that that's why we hadn't done anything. We want to be able to do that if we can. We don't know what we can do there. First of all, we haven't had a survey on Dogwood Trail forever, as far as I know. It's been a kind of a go as we can. We need to get a survey of exactly where that street is in relation to the right-of-way, and then act accordingly from that, on what we can do and can't do.
What about the trees that were taken out? How do you know if you were right or wrong from what area you took them from?
You're talking about the trees on Dogwood near Fairway Drive?
Yes.
Those trees were line-of-sight considerations, primarily safety considerations because of line of sight. I'm talking about the trees at the intersection of Dogwood Trail and Fairway Drive. Well, you should talk to the owners who say there was. Council, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.